This week on The Record, Happy New Year. 2026 is here, promising a year of consequential elections and political intrigue. Joining us with insight and analysis on the year to come, from St. Louis Public Radio, Jason Rosenbaum, and from the University of Missouri St. Louis, political science professor Anita Mannion. Plus, a look back at a piece of TV history. It's all coming up right now. Welcome to The Record. I'm Mark Maxwell, reporting from KSDK's downtown studios one final time. It's the start of a new year and the turning of a page for us. After 43 years broadcasting to you live from 1000 Market Street, our station is moving to a new location, still in the city of St. Louis. We'll have a lot more about that later in the program. But as we kick off 2026, we turn right away to two trusted experts to help us preview the year to come in politics in the St. Louis region. Jason Rosenbaum and Anita Mannion are back with me once more. It's great to have you both back.
Great to be here.
Let's kick off. There's a lot to preview in the new year to come here. A big primary election in St. Louis as Cori Bush and Wesley Bell will have this rematch. Now Wesley Bell's the incumbent. Now she's the outsider again. We'll get to that in a minute. But first I want to look over across the river in Illinois because that Senate primary is coming up much more quickly, less than 3 months away there. It's the biggest open seat any of us will cover or monitor this year in our neck of the woods. Senator Dick Durbin walking away. What issues do you think could most define the Democratic primary, Anita?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's very rare to have an open seat like this. And so not only are Democrats going to be vying for it, but Republicans will too. I think that the issues, I think there's going to be a lot of pushback against things the Trump administration has done regarding immigration, abortion, other issues. So I think that most Democrats will be on the same page for those, but then they'll also probably try to talk about things like the Illinois budget, crime, policing, things where they will try to identify some variation within the field.
Jason, we've seen already Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton trailing in the polls. Raja Krishnamurthy, the congressman from the Chicago suburbs, the northwest suburbs, he raised something like $18 to $20 million over the course of his congressional career, saved it up in a big nest egg, and now he's leading both in campaign cash by a long shot, and he's leading in the polls. But some of that money came from 9 donors who gave to President Trump or to Trump-related campaigns, and the Stratton campaign's trying to hit him for that. Have you ever seen that be an effective line of attack that actually changes the outcome of a race?
No, and I think that these candidates are all going to be basically the same on issues, so you have to figure out a way to differentiate yourself. I think it is interesting to me that 2 of the major candidates, Juliana Stratton and Robin Kelly, are both from the city of Chicago, and Krishnamurthy is from the suburbs where I happen to be from. And that, I think, is going to be where this race is won. I'd love
in
to
the
say,
suburbs.
Yeah, I'd love to say that the Metro East and Southern Illinois will play a big role, but that's the one part of the state that's gotten more Republican, and I'm not sure there's going to be enough voters around the St. Louis metro area to matter. But if it's a really close race, maybe we'll see some of the candidates in Belleville or Edwardsville.
We've seen some of that already.
Yeah.
And I think Robin Kelly, if she were here, she'd tell you that her district stretches down beyond Bourbonnais, beyond Kankakee, even touching almost Danville. So she stretches into that farmland. And both Robin Kelly and Raja Krishnamurthy have talked about their links to Peoria or to Central or Southern Illinois. So they're trying to claim the downstate mantle. Dick Durbin, famously from East St. Louis.
Yeah. And, that is one of the byproducts of Illinois' creatively drawn districts, which is another euphemism for gerrymandered districts. It's one of the few states where Democrats gerrymandered Republicans into oblivion. Again, that just kind of showcases it's about personality and style. There really doesn't seem to be many tangible difference on the issues between these candidates. And I think it's going to be whoever can be seen as the biggest advocate for Democratic issues and values.
It's always interesting in Illinois when they have a primary on St. Patrick's Day on that Tuesday. There were candidates in Chicago especially who liked that, the O'Shaughnessy's, the O'Kellys, they got a little bit of a boost, the St. Patrick's luck of the Irish bounce there. Let's look at the Republican prospects for winning that open seat. Anita, Donald Trump lost Illinois 3 times over. Don Tracy, the former chair of the Illinois Republican Party, is based in Springfield. He says, look, it's an open seat, which means it's up for grabs. And despite Trump losing there, he thinks he has a path to victory. Where would that rank for you in the universe of political upsets if a Republican was able to win statewide in Illinois in this political climate?
Yeah, that would be pretty unusual. I think the last Republican to win a Senate seat was prior to Tammy Duckworth, who still holds that seat. So you're going back about 15 years since that happened. So I think that's very unlikely, but in an open race, certainly, it's worth a shot.
Well, then there's the rematch, Cori Bush versus Wesley Bell. This time she's the outsider. He's the incumbent. She seems more comfortable fighting the power than she felt in power, and this lane seems like a more natural fit for her. What are you watching for, Anita, in this primary race?
In the last time these two matched up, we saw Bell win by about 5 or 6 points, but it was one of the most expensive primaries in the country. Lots of money coming into it, and like we talked about how in Illinois, how can those candidates differentiate themselves? That's one way this happened in the last election. And questions about where money came from. Like Jason said, it didn't end up affecting this race because even though Wesley Bell was criticized for where a lot of his funding came from, ultimately he was the winner. But I do think Cori Bell really wears that outsider activist mantle and will come in strong for this election.
Cori Bush there, yeah, I think that's an interesting.
What did I say, Cori Bell?
It's sometimes it all matches together. He still has the money, he had the money, he was able to spend it. I'll be curious to see if he gets the same kind of financial support this time around. Jason, as you evaluate Wesley Bell's vulnerabilities, he had that vote where the vote was one condemning anti-Semitism, but in the same breath thanking ICE officers. The second one, I wonder if the Cori Bush team can say she might have done a louder job advocating for St. Louis in the wake of that tornado response. What do you think are his most vulnerable spots for her to attack him?
Well, this is a race where there is a big issue differential. Like, Cori Bush has been an outspoken critic of the Israeli government and a proponent of Palestinian self-determination. Wesley Bell has been a pretty vocal supporter. So the question is, does that issue still have salience in 2026, especially because there is still a lot of hard feelings within the Democratic electorate, especially among white voters, and frankly Jewish voters, and also voters who are Palestinian descent.
But is that issue still front of mind?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. And I think the other thing that I say 100,000 times in this district is this is a majority African-American district, or on paper it is. We can quibble about whether it still is because of the tornado situation. But it's whoever is able to win like a substantial majority of the black vote that's going to win this. And Wesley Bell did significantly better than Cori Bush in the heart of this district, which is not St. Louis City, it's North St. Louis County. And if his base there erodes and Cori Bush is able to win back support that supported her in 2022 especially, she has a path. But it's going to be, she has to prove to voters that she deserves to go back. The
other question to look at here, just quickly, is that I think that turnout is going to be big. Democrats were depressed in 2024. They had the changing of the guard with Biden to Kamala Harris. They were a little lost. In 26, I think the energy is going to be a lot higher. You're going to see higher turnout. Who does that favor? We're going to explore that question a lot more when we come back. Fight for control of Congress is on the ballot in 26. And when, if ever, will Republicans start to see Donald Trump as a lame duck? Next. Welcome back, Jason and Anita. Right now, Republicans heading into 2026 have control of the gavel in Congress, in the House. We'll see if that stays that way after 2026. One district in our neck of the woods that could decide that, Missouri's 2nd Congressional District. Ann Wagner has stayed in power through several map changes. If this new map stays in place, we'll see if it does. It would seem, Jason, that this new map voted for President Trump by a margin of 12 points. That hasn't been enough in special elections. We've seen the Democrats gain by more than double digits in a lot of different districts. I don't know if you see this Missouri 2nd District as more loyal, stickier support for Donald Trump, or can you compare Missouri to Virginia, for example?
Well, I am maybe in the minority on this, but I don't think the new 2nd District is ostensibly that much different than the old one. You're correct that it's more Republican by a couple of points, but I don't think that's going to matter because of one thing. Democrats have never been able to beat Ann Wagner in St. Louis County. And until they do that, they won't win the 2nd District. Because
the trend is her friend.
Yeah. So she has been able to overperform in the part of the district that has become significantly more Democratic. And the question that I have is this finally the year that a candidate like Fred Wellman, who is clearly like the front runner in this primary for the Democratic side, does he not only win St. Louis County, but is able to hold down her margins everywhere else. If he can, he has a chance. If he doesn't win St. Louis County, this race is over before it starts.
One of the reasons we can say Fred Willman has that status is because he has ties to some of the grassroots organization. His campaign seems to have more momentum. He's out there a lot more. We just haven't heard from some of the other Democrats so far. Are those dynamics strong enough, do you think, Anita, for Fred Willman to overtake Ann Wagner or to catch up with her, make it a close race? She has basically said she's not going to commit to debating him until he proves he's real.
She hasn't debated any of her past challengers through the last several cycles, so that's not new. So saying that about him, I don't think holds a lot of water. But I would put money on the fact that she won't debate him. She has had what I would consider stronger challengers than someone like Jill Shoup, who has run for office, who's fundraised, and they were unsuccessful. Ann Wagner has been very successful at keeping challengers at bay. And so unless national politics and those trends that we've seen in special elections really surge, and like Jason said, unless he can somehow win St. Louis County, that's Ann Wagner's seat.
The other question is, how will she answer the Trump question? In Indiana, we're seeing Republicans refuse Trump's demands on the map there. In D.C., a number of Republicans condemning him over his recent callous comments, insulting the politically charged remarks about the murder of Rob and Michelle Reiner. In the Jeffrey Epstein files, we saw a number of Republicans break ranks with Trump and actually beat him, forcing the release of the Epstein files. And we saw the very public breakup with Marjorie Taylor Greene and the man whose MAGA politics swept her to power. So are all of these mere blips on the Trump power radar, or do you think Donald Trump is slipping into lame duck status before our eyes?
I think there's a bigger factor that will cause him to be a lame duck, and that's the economy. The economy is not doing very well right now. Like, there was some job numbers that were not only anemic, but I think that the economy lost jobs. Inflation is still a really big problem. There are still a lot of young people out there that have no pathway to buy a house. And even his core supporters, like in rural areas, not saying all rural people are farmers, but people in the agriculture industry are getting killed by these tariffs. So that, I think, is going to be a more salient thing for Democrats to win by just saying, like, Donald Trump's traditionally strongest issue, the economy, is not good. And if voters are like, the economy is terrible, then all the things you just mentioned will just kind of add fuel to kind of an already out of control fire.
We'll talk affordability, price points, political pressure, and which candidates and politicians from the local region might be best poised to use 2026 as a launch pad for 2028 when we come back. Welcome back to The Record as we preview the political year to come in 2026. And Anita and Jason, last week we previewed some of Josh Hawley's evolution as he continues to try to stake out a lane for himself as one of the heirs to the MAGA movement. Jason, is there any question in your mind that Josh Hawley wants to be president?
I mean, yeah, I'm sure he does, but I think a big question he's going to have to ask himself is there a path in 2028, or does he wait until 2032? He's not especially old. I think he's 4 years older than me. I always joke with him that he is technically not a millennial because he was born on December 31st, 1979. So he could ostensibly wait, but the biggest question in politics usually is timing and when is the right time to do something like run for president. And I think that if there is a sense from him that J.D. Vance is not this inevitable, world-beating inevitability, which is, that's a bit redundant, then yeah, he might try to run. And I think he is carving out a very interesting lane for himself.
But if the pressure of prices and affordability becomes something that hangs around J.D. Vance and the Trump administration's neck, how do you run, if you're J.D. Vance, on that issue? It's going to be an interesting question. Anita, we see Josh Hawley try to say the GOP is out of step with the public when it comes to Medicaid, when it comes to SNAP, when it comes to health insurance premiums. But at the same time, he criticizes his own party for not doing enough to be pro-Trump. So it seems like he's trying to create this lane. What do you make of his political maneuvers in this, and what do you expect to see from him in 26?
It seems to me he's trying to position himself as values conservative, but sort of economic populism, which is sort of the lane that Donald Trump tried to carve out. It's not a traditional Republican lane in recent years. And so I think he, with the establishment of this organization anti-abortion. He's trying to make sure he has that lane solidly there, religious conservatives. And so I think that it is challenging to thread that needle of, the administration shouldn't cut Medicaid and shouldn't cut SNAP, but we need to support the administration. But I think he's doing his best to walk that line and distinguish himself from other candidates. I feel pretty confident that he wants to run in 2028.
It looks like he's trying to appeal to a general electorate and a primary base at the same time. You mentioned that dark money group, the Loving Life PAC that Josh and Aaron Hawley founded. That's raising the issue of abortion ahead of the midterms at a time when Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have said that's a losing issue for Republicans. That brings us across the river to J.B. Pritzker, who's gotten profiles in the New Yorker and Washington Post and New York Times. They all see him as a potential contender in presidential politics. I don't know of any Democrat who's been more effective on the abortion messaging than J.B. Pritzker has. It could shape up to be an interesting contrast between Illinois and Missouri in 28.
Well, I think the biggest difference between Josh Hawley and J.B. Pritzker, besides the fact that one's a U.S. senator and one's a governor, is J.B. Pritzker can self-fund his presidential campaign. I mean, I wouldn't want to write a $1 billion check to run for president, but I think he could ostensibly do that. And that would make him, I think, it would make him a top-tier contender. I understand, like Michael Bloomberg did that, and he failed.
The Bloomberg blunder.
But J.B. Pritzker is on another level of charisma and accomplishment compared to Michael Bloomberg, who was like a charisma black hole. And I think the big question for Pritzker is how is he going to stand out against people like Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, Wes Moore? I understand that, like, one of the things he could say is, like, I did all these things in Illinois after many years of not being able to get them done. But I think that's going to be his bigger challenge. It won't be a challenge of money, for sure.
I wish we had more time. Thank you to you both. New year, new us. We look back at the legacy of KSDK in downtown St. Louis next. Well, the time has come to say goodbye. Not to this host or to this program, but to this building. KSD-TV first came over the airwaves from downtown St. Louis 78 years ago. And for the last 43 years, KSDK has been broadcasting live from right here at 1000 Market Street. So before we pack up and move out to our new studios at the old arena near Forest Park, let's check the record.
Change is inevitable. Change is constant. And change, well, it can be hard, especially when it asks you to say goodbye to a place that feels like home, a place where history was made, deadlines were chased, and the city came alive every single day. This building at 1000 Market Street has been many things over the years: a newsroom, a classroom, a proving ground, a second home. But even this place was once a change. In 1982, the move here felt bold, necessary. Technology was changing, television was changing. The tools of the trade were evolving faster than the walls could hold them. Cameras got smaller, broadcasts got faster, deadlines got tighter, and this station kept moving forward because standing still was never an option. Long before Market Street, there was a brand new idea called television. In 1947, KSDK signed on as KSD-TV, the second television station west of the Mississippi River, a signal pushing west just like the city it served. Back then, St. Louis was a gateway, and this station was a megaphone. The Pulitzer family would eventually sell KSD Radio as FCC rules changed and ownership shifted. New names, new owners, new chapters. Change brought sales, mergers, acquisitions, because powerful voices have always attracted powerful interests. But through every deal and every disruption, one thing never changed: the people, the reporters knocking on doors, the photographers running toward the sirens, the producers rewriting scripts as breaking news rolled in, the journalists who showed up day after day to explain a complicated world to the people who live in it. And now, once again, change is calling. This time, the move is west, to the old arena grounds just south of Forest Park. A new space, new tools, new ways to tell the same essential stories. The zip code is changing, but the mission is not. Because buildings do not make journalism. Journalists do. And as long as there are questions to ask, truths to chase, and a city worth serving, that this station will keep doing what it has always done, adapting, evolving, and moving forward together. Places change, purpose doesn't. That's why 5 on Your Side is still your home for local news. We have never been defined by walls or wires, only by the responsibility we accept when we turn on the lights.